Pokemon is absolutely going to take the longest out of any section so far because it is the one I have the most plushies in. So, let's kick things off right with Ash Ketchum, the only human Pokemon plush I have, and one I've had for a very long time. There's not much to say about Ash other than the fact that he's a very big plush in comparison to a lot of my Pokemon. And let me tell you something, the scaling between plushies in the Pokemon section is going to be wild, cause there is no consistency. Right after Ash, we have a Pokeball. And after the Pokeball, we have God. Here's Arceus, an absolute fantastic plush from the Pokemon Center site. I love this plush so much. It looks so accurate to Arceus, and it just has so many details and is a wonderful plush that stands really well. A must-have for any Pokemon plush collector. And next up is Palkia, another fantastic legendary plush from the Pokemon Center site. Palkia is one of my favorite legendaries, and this plush is so perfect for him. Love this one a lot too. And of course, after Palkia is Dialga, another fantastic, very big, and very sturdy legendary plush from the Pokemon Center site, and another wonderful must-have. And of course, I also have Arceus' final kid, Giratina. There's not much else to say that I haven't already said for his brothers. He's a very wonderful design. He's very soft, which I haven't said about any of them, but that goes for all of them. And while the wings are a little floppy, they are still pretty cool. And it is worth noting that Giratina is significantly shorter than all of his brothers, and I just find that really funny. Moving away from legendary Pokemon for a brief moment, here is who I dub Giga Meowth. A Meowth plush my family got me for Christmas that turned out to be way bigger than what I actually wanted, but I have kept around ever since because he's just comically large. So, here's Giga Meowth. I actually got this guy way before Gen 8 with Dynamax and Gigantamax and all that stuff, so I don't consider him just a Dynamaxed Meowth. He is forever Giga Meowth. And next is the last large legendary plush that I got from the Pokemon Center site, Lugia. Lugia is probably my favorite legendary Pokemon, tied with, of course, Palkia and Reshiram, and I love this plush so much because of its articulable arms, articulable head, and just generally being a great, big, fluffy plush that captures Lugia perfectly. Next up is Sneasler, another acquisition from the Pokemon Center site, and a very recent addition to the entire Pokemon plush line in general. This is another wonderful articulable plush, and is also a really big one, hence why I'm going over it now. As tall as Arceus, and in general, I love Sneasler a lot. If only I had a Warden Ingo plush to go along with her. Next is Hisuian Zoroark. This is basically the same thing as Lady Sneasler, except Zoroark came out a long time before her, and I like it just as much. The hair is a little bit of a problem sometimes trying to get it to stand up, but other than that, this is another wonderful articulable plush that is a wonderful addition to any Pokemon plush collection. Next up, we have Raboot, the only Galarian starter plush I have. I like the little detail that if you move down the little hood thing, you can actually see a smiling mouth. It's a very cute detail for otherwise a pretty good plush, and is a prime example of the scaling issue I was talking about before. The thing's taller than Palkia. Next, Hisuian Lilligant, another wonderful plush that was released recently and has articulable legs. Hisuian Lilligant is not my favorite Hisuian form, but base Lilligant is one of my favorite Pokemon, so of course I had to get this wonderful Hisuian Lilligant. Next up is not only one of my favorite Pokemon plushies I have, but one of my favorite plushies in the entire collection. Hisuian Goodra, another recent addition to the Pokemon Center site, and one that I believe is a must-have for anyone. The Goodra itself is a wonderful design. It's basically just the Sani plush with some minor additions, but I love the expression, I love how floppy the head is, I love its sitting pose, I love everything about it. But the shell is my absolute favorite part of the plush. The shape, the firmness of it, the soft material of the whole plush, but the shell in particular, and how much weight it gives this wonderful plush. Absolutely one of my favorites that I own, period. And of course, I have regular Goodra as well. Like I said, Goodra is my favorite pseudo-legendary, and this is a wonderful plush from Sani. And you are going to hear me say Sani a lot through this section, because Sani's Pokemon plushies are fire, and Goodra is just the first example of that. Next, Gengar. Gengar is not only one of my favorite Pokemon plushies, but one of my favorite characters in my videos in general. I don't know why I gave him the Demo Man voice from TF2 in my videos, but I love it. I actually have no idea who made this Gengar plush, but whoever did put a lot of quality into it. Next is quite possibly the worst example of the scaling issue with my Pokemon plushies, Hisuian Sneasel. This is a fantastic plush, but its size is absolutely bonkers. There is no rhyme or reason that a Sneasel should be as big as Gengar or bigger than Goodra. Next is another bad example of the scaling issue, but doesn't really take away from a great plush. Eevee. Everyone has an Eevee plush, and this one is mine. However, when we get to the evolutions later, you will see how much bigger this Eevee is in comparison to a lot of my Pokemon plushies. Still, a great plush that I'm happy to have. And the final Hisuian plush I have is Hisuian Zora, a Pokemon plush that captures the original Pokemon to a T. You could put this plush alongside a screenshot of an actual Hisuian Zora, and you could barely tell the difference. It is so good. And next up is a very interesting plush, Dragonair. This is a very long plush that can actually articulate throughout most of its body. It may not be the best at keeping the shape it's articulated into, but it's a very good plush regardless. Next up, the Sanny Gardevoir plush. I'm not the hugest Gardevoir fan, and honestly this plush doesn't do her too much justice. From the side the plush looks pretty fine, but from the front the face just looks a little goofy. I don't know, I said that the Sanny plushies are one of the most high quality ones you can get in Pokemon, and that wasn't a lie, but their Gardevoir one is one of the poorer ones. Still, fine with this one, and happy to have it. Next up, the Sanny Flygon plush. And now we're back into the extremely high quality Sanny plushies. This is a fantastic plush. It's super soft, it's well designed, the eyes are stylized very well, and in general, it's again, one of my favorites. Next up is the Sanny Tyranitar plush. Another fantastic Sanny plush that has all the positives of the Flygon one, although Tyranitar is a little bit shorter than I expected, but that's not really Sanny's fault, that's more so just the scaling issue of my Pokemon collection in general. And next up, Sanny Lucario, who is another fantastic plush that captures the original Pokemon so well, though he has the opposite problem as Tyranitar, where Lucario is a little bit too tall in my opinion. Still, doesn't take away from a great plush. And next up, the Sanny Latias. I don't have Latios yet, but Latias is a great plush. Much like Zora, I bet if you put this plush alongside an actual screenshot of Latias, you could barely tell the difference. Next, the Sanny Absol plush. I believe this is the first Sanny plush I got for the Pokemon series, and my god, it is one of the best ones. Next up, Furret. Another fantastic plush that is also articulable, which makes Furret be able to stand up straight, kind of like this. I don't do that too much because I like the long boy being the long boy, and he is a very long boy and a very cute boy. A very good plush. Next we have Sanny Lilligant, and oh my god, this is my pride and joy in my entire collection. I love this plush. I sought after it for so long and finally found it on the eBay listing, shortly after buying Latias and Gardevoir and all of them. I love this plush so much. You touch this thing, I break your fingers off. This is my baby in my Pokemon plush collection, and my plush collection in general. One of my finest. Next we have Marshadow. Not a Sanny plush, but one that could definitely be mistaken for one from its quality. I love the little dangly bits here, and in general this is a fantastic plush. Next, the Sanny Milotic plush. And the Sanny Frostlass plush. And the Sanny Pachirisu plush with a humongous fluffy tail that I love. And next we finally arrive to the yellow rat himself, Pikachu. I actually used to have another Pikachu plush that was similar in the same vein as Gigameowth back there, if you can barely see him. But I got rid of that one a long time ago, but I've kept this Pikachu my entire life. A wonderful little Pikachu plush who has lost some of his fluff over time, but still one that I absolutely have to keep because it's the yellow rat. Of course I have to keep him. Next up we have Pikachu's much larger evolution, Pichu. Yeah, this Pichu plush is way bigger than my Pikachu plush, mostly from the ears, but it's still a very big plush. Still, a wonderful little Pichu. And then Pikachu's much smaller evolution, the Sanny Raichu. And despite being much smaller than Pikachu and Pichu, This is still another fantastic Sanny plush. Next we have the Sanny Mew plush, who is another plush that is capturing the original Pokemon perfectly. Next we have Sanny Horsey and Vulpix. And the first of my sitting Sanny Evolution plushies, Sanny Sylveon. Next we have Sanny Flareon, who is absolutely the fluffiest out of my entire Pokemon plush collection. Then Sanny Glaceon, who is my favorite evolution. Next is Sanny Vaporeon, who is the shortest out of all of my evolutions. And finally, the Sanny Umbreon. And then my second Umbreon plush, who doesn't look as good as the Sanny one. The legs are a little weird, the face is a bit odd, but in general is a fine plush. Next up is my Soul Kalos starter, Chespin. And then Sanny Meowth, which is probably one of my favorite Sanny plushies ever. I don't know why, but I just love this guy. He's so perfect, he's so movable, and he's just perfect for videos and anyone's collection. And next is the only starter trio I have complete other than, of course, the Kanto one, starting with Snivy, then Tepig, and then Oshawott, who is not only my favorite out of the Univant starters, but possibly one of my favorite starters ever. I mean, look at this adorable little guy. Next we have Woobat, and Munna. Next is the only Johto starter I have, Chikorita. And my only Sinnoh starter, Turtwig. Then we have Sanny's Whimsicott, Sanny's Jigglypuff, and Sanny's Marrow, which is one of my favorites. Next is Squirtle, and Charmander, and of course Bulbasaur. Then we have Pansage, and then my favorite Pokemon of them all, Weavile. I love this plush a lot. I've used it extensively in my Competition Plush series, and I will continue to do so, because Weavile is also one of my favorite characters in that series, simply for being my favorite Pokemon. Next up is Torchic, and Mudkip. Then we have this tiny little Mewtwo plush, who is also articulable, even in his tail, and I love it a lot. Next up is this little Baneri plush. And then a couple of extra Lilligant plushies when trying to search for the God tier Sanny one, including this itty bitty one with an adorable little tag I've decided to keep on. And this little sleeping one. Next is Budew. And then these old and crappy Plusle and Minun plushies. I like Plusle and Minun a lot, they're probably my favorite Pika clones, but these are not great plushies of them. Their tails are exactly the same and way too far up on their bodies. Their faces are fine, but they don't really sit up, and in general they're very poor plushies, which is why I got much better ones later down the line. And those better Plusle and Minun plushies will segue us into my Sitting Cuties collection, starting with, of course, my Sitting Cuties Plusle and Minun. But honestly, it's easy to forget that these are even Sitting Cuties at all, because they fit in so well with all the other Pokemon plushies I have. Plusle and Minun are already so small that Sitting Cuties of them just work so well, which is not something I can say about all of my Sitting Cuties, but I'm happy to have all of them regardless. And Plusle and Minun are two of the finest ones. Next up is Gligar, who is, yes, a Sitting Cuties, but actually the only one I didn't buy from the Pokemon Center site. I got this one secondhand, which is why it has the Pokemon Fit label, which is what they're called in Japan. Regardless, this is a very wonderful Gligar plush. Next is Nidorina, and Girafarig, and Zangoose, who's a Pokemon I'm honestly really surprised only has a Sitting Cuties plush, but regardless, this is one of the best Sitting Cuties I have. Next is Skitty, and Bayleaf, and Spinda, and Miltank, and Sneasel. I love this Sitting Cuties a lot. Much like Plusle and Minun, it fits in with all the others to a T, and in general is so wonderful. It scales perfectly with my other Weavile plush and is one of my favorites. And of course, I also have the Sitting Cuties Weavile plush. I like this one just as much as my other one. I think it has some positives over the other and some negatives over the other. Regardless, this is again one of my favorites of my favorite Pokemon. Next up is Cradily, my favorite fossil Pokemon. And Lopunny. And Roserade. And my boy Zigzagoon. And with Purloin here, we move into my final Sitting Cuties from the recently released Gen 5 section. Purloin is a wonderful plush, and while not my favorite Pokemon from Gen 5, I do really like this plush a lot, and being a cat lover, I had to get this one. Next we have Leavanny. And Maractus, and I don't care how forgettable you say this one is one of my favorites. Then we have Volcarona, a Pokemon who has only grown on me recently, and one who I'm very happy to have a plush of. And to fully wrap up the Pokemon section, here is the Sitting Cuties of Reshiram and Zekrom. Reshiram has always been one of my favorite legendaries, so I had to get a plushie of her at some point, and Zekrom is a Pokemon that's really grown on me recently. Of course, I wanted the larger versions akin to Lugia and God and his kids, but they've never been in stock on Pokemon Center for a long time, so I just had to settle with the Sitting Cuties, and they're both very fine plushies. I just wanted them in my collection in some form. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my entire Pokemon plush collection. The series that has the most plushies out of my entire collection with a whopping 91, which is really astounding to me based on how recently I actually got invested in the Pokemon franchise. Thank goodness, after that long section, we have one that I can speed through much quicker. So of course, we have Sonic the Hedgehog, another one of my older plushies in terms of my whole collection, and another one of my favorite characters among my videos. Sonic in general is a franchise I've only recently gotten interested in, hence why it's the last one I'm covering. But even despite that, Sonic is still one of my favorite characters in my videos, and this is a very old and classic plush in my collection. And how could I possibly have Sonic without Tails? Here is Tails, another very old plush in my collection who I've had just as long as Sonic. I haven't used Tails as much in my videos as Sonic, but I would really like to because he is also a very fun character. And I should also note that Tails and Sonic are the only two Sonic plushies that you will notice have any consistent scaling with each other, because, much like Pokemon, it gets wild. And next up is Knuckles. Kind of. I bought this Knuckles plush a little while ago, and I honestly don't like it at all. The face is weird, the head is super small and flat, the Knuckles themselves are once again just little thin paper things, the shoes and legs are all floppy, the tail is puny, and I don't like this plush at all. Hence why I got another one. This is my second Knuckles plush and is miles better than that piece of crap over there. The face is wonderful, the heads and spines are so amazingly detailed, the shoes are better, the Knuckles are way superior, the face is more amazing. It's not as soft as any of my other Sonic plushies or that other Knuckles, but in general, this is the perfect Knuckles plushie, and it's also way freaking bigger than Sonic and Tails, which I find hilarious. Next up is, of course, Dr. Ivo Robotnik. Here's my Eggman plush, who is weirdly in scale more so with Sonic and Tails than anyone else. I didn't really want an Eggman plush that was that small, but this is the only good-looking one I could find anywhere, so I bought him, and he's a very fun character that I like to use in my videos a lot. And next up is Rouge the Bat, the lankiest Sonic plush I have. This is just an alright plush in my eyes. The eyes are just kind of printed on with a weird material. The wings are really flimsy, the legs are super stiff, and so are her arms. But she's a fine plush, and Rouge is genuinely one of my favorite Sonic characters. And next, coming all the way from the IDW comics, is Tangle the Lemur. I'm honestly very surprised and very happy that Tangle has a plush made of her, because she is one of my favorite Sonic characters of all time. One of the only reasons I got invested in Sonic, aside from another character. Tangle's plush, though, I'm a little bit more critical of. The face is amazing, but the little hair fluff on top of her isn't that great. It's really flat and only looks good from one angle, it doesn't even stay upright most of the time. I don't really like how she's kind of stuck in this one pose with her arms up like this. Her tail stitched to her thumb and ear is a little annoying, and the legs are really floppy while the feet are really, like, heavy. But honestly, none of that matters because a plush of Tangle at all is amazing, and I love it so much. And then we have Whisper, also from the IDW comics, and also the only reason, other than Tangle, I got interested in the Sonic franchise. Whisper is a fantastic character, but much like Tangle, I'm very critical of her plush. Her mask is a little bit small and the material's a bit rough on it, but mostly her face. I don't know what it is. I know Whisper always has the sort of closed, squinty eyes, but these look too squinty to me. The mouth also doesn't look right, and in general, the tail is a little bit floppy. But in general, this is another fantastic plush, and I am happy to have her alongside Tangle. And finally, we have Big the Cat, the most recent addition to the plush collection as a whole, and a very nice one. This is such, again, a very firm plush and a very soft one. I love all his little details, like the fishing rod with a little lure at the end, his tail, his belt. Everything about this just screams big, and he's also a very fittingly big plush, the biggest Sonic one I have, and one of my biggest in general, and I love him so much. And that covers all of my Sonic the Hedgehog plushies. A very small amount tied with Kirby and Animal Crossing at the lowest with 9. But we are not done quite yet. While I have gone over all the series that have at the very least a decent handful of plushies, there are still a few outliers that only reside as themselves, or with a couple members. Beginning with the biggest and most boring, we have these 3 emoji pillows. They don't really mean much to me, I honestly just kind of won them in an arcade, but I've kept them ever since, and they do a lot of good, adding to the number of plushies overall. Next is another yellow character, but a square one instead of a circle one, SpongeBob SquarePants, probably the oldest plush I have in this whole section, and, as always, one of my favorites. Then we have a much bigger yellow character, Winnie the Pooh. And then we have 2 more yellow characters that I care about as much as the emoji pillows, a pair of Minion plushies. Not much to say about them, they just kind of add to the grand total. And now the final yellow character, Pac-Man. Then are my 2 Pac-Man ghosts, Blinky and Inky. Next up we have Scooby-Doo. And then Muno from Yo Gabba Gabba. I doubt most of you even know what the heck that is, and honestly, I watched the show myself and I barely remember. Muno's just another plushie that adds to the total for me. Next is this Minecraft creeper. And an Enderman from Minecraft. Then a pair of pig mobs. And finally for Minecraft, a mushroom. Minecraft has the most out of anyone in this last section, but at only 5 pretty uninteresting plushies, I didn't think it was worth giving its own section. But what's Minecraft without Terraria? I know nothing about Terraria, I know this skull is from a boss of some sort, but I don't know its name, so it's forever just Skull to me, but I do like it. Next is Bendy. Bendy's a very fun character in my videos, and I like this plush a lot. I just haven't really bought any other Bendy plushies for really no good reason. I just haven't really felt like it, I guess. Bendy's a franchise that I lost interest in for a while, but I will always like this plush, and sometime in the future I would like to get the other characters that have plushies. And next we have Sans the Skeleton. I'm pretty sure this isn't the actual Sans plush from, like, Fangamer. I bought this one on Amazon, so it's probably a bootleg, but to me that doesn't really matter too much because I still love this plush, and of course, I had to get Sans. And how could I have Sans without Papyrus? Here is my Papyrus plush, who, much like Sans, I bought off Amazon, so I am fairly certain is not a legitimate one from Fangamer. But that being said, I still really like this plush as it is perfectly Papyrus. And then we have from Splatoon, Callie and Marie. I bought these 2 when I got back into a big Splatoon kick for a while, but I haven't had much desire to use them for videos or such either way. But no matter what, these are still 2 very fantastic plushies that I am happy to have bought. And the final non-video game plush is this Baby Yoda plush, who was a gift from a friend who is much more into Star Wars than I ever will be. And last, but oh-ho, certainly not least, my 1 Deltarune plushie of Jevil. Jevil is one of my favorite video game characters of all time, and is the one character that made me realize that evil jesters is just one of my favorite things in general. I love this plush so much. He's so big. I love that if you tap his hand over here, he'll actually play sounds. I love his design, and I only just discovered this while trying to get him ready for filming. You can actually take his cape off. The middle there is made of Velcro, so you can just have him without a cape. And I adore that. This plushie has surprises for me everywhere, and it will forever be one of my favorites in the entire collection. And with the Man of Chaos himself covered, we have gone over the last 25 plushies of my collection, and have officially gone over all 332 plushies in my plush collection. Thank you all so much for watching. This was honestly so much fun going through all of them, giving stories about them, and just reminiscing on when there were simpler times and I only had a few handful of them. Everything being said, this is Bowser 29, and thank you all for watching.